Woman has come forward claiming her child is my half-brother to try to get a part of my father's estate despite the fact it is impossible. What can I do make this woman go away or pay for this stunt? When my father passed away, I thought the worst was behind me. The funeral was quiet, dignified, and deeply emotional. Friends and family gathered in our small-town church to celebrate his life, and I left feeling both heartbroken and proud of the man he had been. He worked his entire life to provide for us, never once faltering in his commitment to our family. But just 2 weeks later, grief turned into something else, something darker, when a woman I had never seen before showed up at my doorstep with a teenage boy standing silently beside her. She introduced herself as Jessica, wearing a stiff smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I think we need to talk about your father's estate, and my son's inheritance," she said, her voice calm but sharp, as if she were presenting an undeniable fact. For a moment, I thought I misheard her. My father? Her son? What was she talking about? I asked her to explain, and that's when she told me, confidently, that her son was my half-brother and therefore entitled to a portion of my father's assets. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. Not because I believed her, but because she spoke as if she expected me to. My father had been married to my mother for decades, and he was the most loyal man I'd ever known. I couldn't even picture him looking at another woman, let alone fathering a secret child. But Jessica didn't flinch. She claimed she had a relationship with my dad nearly 17 years ago, around the time her son was conceived. And yet, her story had one major problem: my father wasn't even in the country during that time. He had been deployed overseas, serving in the military. I still have the letters he wrote me, filled with vivid descriptions of life on base, signed with love, and stamped with foreign postmarks. I even remember the smell of the paper, slightly smoky, like the tents he stayed in. "Jessica," I said, keeping my voice steady, "you're mistaken. My dad couldn't have been here when your son was conceived. He was serving overseas." She smirked, like she had heard this before, and said, "People can travel. Men can lie. Just because you think you knew your father doesn't mean you did." That was the moment I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding, it was an attack. And I wasn't about to let her rewrite my father's life just to take what he worked so hard to build. Part 2, Gathering Evidence. I couldn't sleep that night. Jessica's words echoed in my mind like a broken record, but underneath my anger was something far stronger: conviction. I knew my father. I knew his values, his loyalty, his sacrifices. There was no way her story was true. The next morning, I called my attorney and told him everything. He advised me to gather any proof I could: letters, records, photographs, anything to prove where my father was during the time Jessica claimed they were together. Luckily, my dad had been a meticulous man. He kept everything neatly stored in a wooden trunk, from military documents to family photos. As I flipped through the stack of letters he had sent during deployment, I couldn't help but feel the weight of his words. Each page spoke of longing for home, pride in serving his country, and unwavering love for his family. There was even one dated precisely 9 months before Jessica's son was born, written from halfway around the world. But I knew letters weren't enough. Jessica wasn't going to give up easily. That's when I decided to hire a private investigator. My attorney recommended someone experienced in inheritance fraud cases, and within days, he uncovered something shocking: Jessica had a history of pulling stunts like this. Over the last decade, she had filed multiple paternity claims against different families, all conveniently after the supposed father had passed away. She had never succeeded, but she had caused emotional and financial chaos for everyone involved. Fueled by anger and a desire to protect my father's name, I confronted her again. This time, I brought up a DNA test. "If you're so sure about your son's father, then prove it," I told her. Her reaction told me everything I needed to know. She stiffened, her eyes darting to the boy beside her, and snapped, "DNA tests are invasive. I don't need to prove what I already know." But she was lying. And now, I had evidence to prove it. Part 3, The Courtroom Showdown. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and tension. Jessica sat across from me, wearing a dark suit that tried, and failed, to make her look credible. Her son sat quietly beside her, avoiding eye contact. I felt bad for him, he was just a pawn in her game. My attorney began by presenting my father's military records, undeniable proof that he was stationed overseas during the period Jessica claimed they had an affair. The judge leaned forward, scanning the documents, while Jessica's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Then came the letters, dozens of them, dated, stamped, and written in my father's distinct handwriting. Each one placed him thousands of miles away, dreaming only of coming home to his wife and child. Jessica tried to fight back. She took the stand and spoke dramatically, claiming my father had snuck back during deployment to be with her. But when the judge asked for proof, plane tickets, hotel receipts, anything, she had nothing. Finally, my attorney requested a DNA test in front of the court. The judge turned to Jessica and said, "If your claim is true, this will confirm it beyond doubt. Are you willing to proceed?" Jessica froze. Her hands trembled. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "No." That was it. The case collapsed. The judge, clearly frustrated, reprimanded her for wasting the court's time and ordered her to cover my legal fees. Her son looked devastated, not because of the ruling, but because he had just realized his mother had been lying all along. As I left the courtroom, relief washed over me. But so did a deep sadness, for the boy, for my father's memory, and for the fact that some people would go to such lengths for greed. Part 4, Resolution and Reflection. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt like a weight had been lifted from my chest. Justice had been served, and my father's name, his honor, remained untarnished. But the victory felt bittersweet. I couldn't stop thinking about Jessica's son, who had been dragged through this mess because of his mother's greed. Back home, I opened my father's old trunk again. Inside, beneath the military documents, I found a small journal. It was filled with his thoughts during deployment, how much he missed family dinners, how he dreamed of teaching me how to fish, how he promised himself he'd never waste a single moment with us when he returned. Reading those words, I felt closer to him than ever before. He may not have been perfect, but he was the kind of man who built his life on loyalty and love, not lies. In the weeks that followed, I received one last letter from Jessica, not an apology, but a desperate plea to reconsider and be fair to her son. I didn't respond. Some doors are better left closed. Instead, I focused on honoring my father's legacy. I donated part of my inheritance to a veterans charity, because I knew he would have wanted to help others who served, just as he had. Now, when I think about that courtroom, I don't just remember the anger or the betrayal, I remember the pride I felt standing up for the man who raised me. And I know, deep down, he would have been proud too. Would you have gone as far as I did to defend a loved one's legacy? Or would you have walked away and let the lie fade into silence?